Okay, and it's been a good while since I've had a video, and I got this old Buick Regal out. And what I've decided to do is put, as I do in all my cars, this has been sitting, power seats in lieu of manual seats or seat tracks. And I've got videos on this already. I'll critique things again. And, it's kind of always fun to watch a project sometimes if you're like I am. But in both sides, I didn't even get a power seat here. And it's a rather highly optioned car. In this example is about 18,000 miles on it. So out come the tracks and the track covers for the manual tracks. And 4 bolts, and you don't even need to take off the lap belt harness. That's what you take off, and you're done. So let's start and do that. Okay, and as the old saying goes, better late than never for this little task that we're about to perform. But look, truth be told, and I'll talk about this a little more in depth, but this is a lousy design. Even when you do decide to purpose these cars with power seats, which are a nice amenity. But the point, I guess, in the remark is that the switch plates, they should have been on the doors. Just a thought, just an opinion, and that's my opinion. Perhaps like a Riviera or an Electra platform back in that, class or category of car. Because a larger person, and we're all larger these days, right? You hear it all the time with airlines and stuff, and I'm one of them, can really break down that plate cover when you enter the car. And then after that, you can't hold these cars. So here I am, and my back is up against the wall, and I have to redo the bumper fillers. And, and that's doable, but I guess time comes to catch us all, and I'll be seeing to that as well. But, didn't expect that, but I guess it's time. 40 years? I'll soon be 50, right? And our cars are getting old. So you're up against those sorts of things, and let's get on with our task. Okay, and isn't it, it's not out of necessity that you need to do this. If you're a bigger individual, I am. I'm not an A380, but I'm not a Cessna. Then this conversion, we'll call it, is welcomed. So this isn't rocket science, is it? There's 4 studs, and out it'll come. And this will lift right out, and we'll get those manual tracks off and see what we can do with converting this one over to power. Now, G bodies, a Cutlass is a Regal is a Monte Carlo, a Jimmy, a Blazer, a Bravada, a Citation, an Omega, a Skylark, a Jimmy, a Blazer, a Bravada. They're all the same and different but the same. This is a real G-body car, unlike the earlier A-body cars that evolved into the G-body cars, and they're literally pretty much all the same anyway, as I understand it. So their point of the remark being that they're very readily available. There's just quadrillions of them. When Cash for Clunkers, didn't it? It knocked out a lot of our cars, but there's still an abundance. So find the proper track if you so feel the urge. And again, we'll indulge in conversion. So we'll take off these covers and excussions. For the tilt in this example. Ashtrays. Why is this ever old? And get it exposed here before we get the tracks off the bottom. Okay, let's do that. Okay, and get the chair staged, and won't we? We'll take these tracks off. So 1 corner, 2 corner, 3 corner, 4 corner. You get the idea. 2, and then 3, and then 4. So let's do that. Okay, and these are just simple little nothing tracks. You know, fairly rigid for the time, I guess. Anyway, here we go again with the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 bolt corners to stage our now power seat track on our seat. So it's pretty evident, you know, what needs to be done here, and not rocket science. So let's get some, don't you? You go to the yard and you grab some switches and get a tracks, whichever side that you prefer, one or both. In this example, it's going to be both. And get some power seats. Okay, let's continue on. And on a quick side note, come on, people, a Grand Prix is a Cutlass, is a Regal, is a Monte Carlo, is a Herstol's, or even a Cadillac Cimarron. So look for your tracks. Find them on Facebook. Find them on Craigslist. They're out there. If thee look, thou shalt find. They're out there. Okay, so on a side note, there seems to be some confusion here. When you get these tracks, and I popped these, I don't know, a year or 2 years ago, you have to stage them a certain way. And we just talked about the bolt corners, and there they are, right? In all the 4 corners. And everything here is going to obviously work in unison. So what I like to do is I'll take these cables apart till they're filthy with grease and everything else. Anyway, the confusion seems to be direction. So if we change direction, or we, in this example, put a power track in, say the driver's side versus the passenger side, we're going to go back and forward another way. We're still going to go up in the back and down in the front and so on and so on. But the forward and back, we're gonna have a different feature. And I'm not sure, and I don't know that there was a right seat track and a left seat track. But what I do is just simply switch the wire. You know, the wire's purposed. The green is forward, the blue, I believe, is back. So you'll pop that connector out of this cavity, and we'll move green for black, and we'll change him for him and him for him. So we'll have that same command on the switch when we rocker the switch forward. Some more switches I think I grabbed. And command a forward command, and then the back command. And, you know, does it make sense? On the passenger side, the seat's going to be another way. It's going to be 180 degrees different. And so is the track, isn't it? You know? Think about it. And there, I think, is where the confusion lies. So along with that, there's some aesthetics going on here. And we're going to need some trim pieces, and that all comes when you grab these parts off your salvage car. They like to be called automotive recycling facilities. They get all pissed off if you call them junkyards anymore. And anyway, we'll look into that and talk about that in a little more of a finite sense of detail. Okay, let's get that done. So I don't have a videographer. I'm just holding the phone in one hand and trying to get my thought out in the other. Obviously, there's a larger stool in the back. We're going to learn this is the back. A bigger footprint, a bigger foot, whatever you like to call it. Anyway, then a lighter one with just one bolt head or stud with a nut, in this example. Perhaps a bolt in the back. I think they're studs too. Don't know, we're going to find out though. And then see when we stage these tracks where those covers will adhere to. Because you don't want to look at this, do you? On the side and all this metal work. So we abate that with those covers that I just prefaced. So these old manual track covers, you can't stage those with the power track. They only will work in unison with the manual track. Now look at a saw-happy guy or somebody with black Gorilla Tape or something may disagree with that. But, you know, there's just little things on here. Here's the manual track. This went under that bolt here to cover when you looked in, you know, so you didn't have to look at that track, and it went in a little bit more. But, you know, you get the idea that this is all to oblige the aesthetic appeal, or, you know, if you didn't have it, a lack of, when we do this track. So this is on backwards then, isn't it? The way this is just sitting here. So we want to move him, don't we? The other way. And voila. See, he can't wait. He's ready to happen. There's the bolt hole right there. In he goes. Front and back. See? Easy peasy, Japanesey, as the old saying goes. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, and then another quick note to self. These are very modular. Again, trying to hold this. So you'll pop these off, and they're just quick connects for these cables. And then you can leach your grease in them. And I've already got this one, you know, you squeeze them. And he'll, you know, see how did you hear him snap in? And you'll squeeze it and, you know, pop them back off. Anyway, to lubricate while you've got this apart, and they're, you know, a lot of them are pretty good. They're well greased for their life. And then there's one that snakes over here on the side. Now, this one, look at, we don't have a lot of access there, but let's look at and think about the problem. Well, here's a jack screw here, in effect, for this feature when this is poised or called. So all we need to do is put power to the track at the power connector. Anyway, we'll find him, and we'll raise this up. And then we're gonna, aren't we, lubricate this screw as well. And these are in all the corners as well. See the jack screws? So just common sense, lubricate it. So let's do that before we do this and do some housekeeping. Now, anal guys will pop these motors, or they'll spot a hole in the bearing cap, and they'll wick oil in there. And these have lash or thrash screws in their armature ends. And generally, I've found that they don't need to be monkeyed with, unless you get a kid or something and they've ran the seat up and back and forth 50,000 times. They're pretty much one-time set all. All right, let's do that. Okay, and back to that aesthetic appeal that I talked about. You know, this will, obviously, it's pretty self-explanatory. It'll go underneath, right? And you'll cinch that up with that same bolt right there. And there's a tab on him. He can only go one way, and the other side can only go another. And these are also in their footprint. See the LH, or left hand, and then the right hand. So you don't have to look at all this when I'm looking at a side profile. Everything looks better profile, but not a power seat track looking at you. Yeah, I know. Somebody spilled a milkshake or something on here years ago. I'll have to clean that up. Mummified. All right, anyway, let's do that. Okay, and you know, you can see that there's a tab here, and you can't put that puppy down any other way or get these wrong. But anyway, the idea, yeah, don't look at the milk or whatever it is to cover this. Now we're going to come back to something around here on the bottom, because when this is purposed way up, you're still going to see the metal work here. And we're going to come back to that. That's over in the box that I just showed you with that track in it. So let's get that situated. So this part wouldn't go this way, then would it? You know, it would go the other way. And when you think about it, well, look at why. This is where the console is. Nobody can see anything because the console's all hiding this. So, you know, you can maybe not even do that. That's up to you. You could save this, in other words, for the seat over here on this side. It'd be the same thing, see? It's just a different side. So that's, I guess, personal preference. Follow me? I mean, in other words, why worry about the aesthetic appeal here, for lack of another word, when there's a council that abuts up to this, and you'll never see it all the rest of its life anyway. But we'll see it back here if we're sitting in the back seat to smoke a cigarette in the ashtray, right? So let's do that. Okay, and I found a spare tractor battery here, and now we've got the switch side in and a test switch. We can check things, and then we'll go up and down. See? To get the room that we need. And everything's uniform, isn't it? It always is. To get us that room that we need as a point of convenience. And you can still go up and back, and we'll get all those cables greasy, slimy, and anyway, you get the idea, and that's a win-win. And these, again, are pretty modular tracks. These are the cheaper ones, if you will, back in the 80s, the aluminum tracks. And they'll work nicely. And they're a lot quieter, and there's no plastic in the gear cases, and, everything's riveted and kind of, but it needn't be, I guess, over-engineered, being fair. So let's do some housekeeping, I guess, for lack of a better word here. Okay. So we're well oiled now. Man, it's just, you're not going to see this over some stupid phone, but things are a lot nicer now that we're lubricated. And these are some of the reasons, these jack screws. And you can see, when you look right at them, that they want to be filthy in that lube. Here he comes. And he's going, hey, I'm loving that, Look at that. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then everything, 7. Look at everything. 8. So a power seat is really a 6-way feature, right? But I just showed you 8 ways. But being fair, you have to call it 6, because if you hold this one, you get both. See, here's the redundant back. In other words, if you want to tilt the back, you'd use this rocker. You want to tip the front up, you'd use this rocker. But when you poise him, then you call them both up. So really, it still is a 6, but I call it an 8. So everybody's just loving it in there. We are filthy with oil and grease. Okay, let's go on to the next step. Okay, now I've done a video on these covers. Look, everybody's got opinions and everything else, but you go back and you look at my power seat conversion video I did a while back with a company that made a supposed replacement cover. Look, they're junk. They don't work. So when you find your right or left side and it doesn't match the color, SEM paints are great. And you can take any color and turn it into any color. And really, there's blue, there's gray, and there's burgundy. There might be some colors in between, like a peanut butter. And then we're going to take off these plates that cover all this stuff here, aren't we? And then next we're going to get our plate cover in. And we're going to get him positioned and get him on. So everything matches nicely, and everybody's happy. So let's start to do that. And we're going to put our harness, aren't we, under here. And we'll wrap it so we'll not hurt that harness. And there's a little sheath around there, and purpose the wiring up to the fuse block and get that done. So let's do that. Okay, this is a bit busy, tricky, whatever, pick your word. There's our harness, see it? He's floating nice. And that track is bolted down. Those bolts are in. And that is this really peculiar bracket. Now there's a hole waiting here. How do you find that hole? The easy answer is to put this bracket, and this is a used one. See where the screw is in on the front here? The bracket front will go on the plate for that staged screw there. So when you put this back in the saddle and you find your tab, look at, I've got to get it under the, I'm gonna get this out. Oh, I know, I should have a tripod. All right, and then this finger indexes in there. All right, there it is. There's one screw and two screws. This one goes in. There's a bit of geometry going on here. I don't know, 15 degrees. And then lastly, the front one. Now that little leg in there, that little cleat, he's gonna find that plate. And you'll put that cover in after we stage this switch. And these only go in one way. You know, I've got top written on this one, but for that 8-way, 6-way, whatever you guys argue it. Seat. So let's get that in. And this is, well, you know, this is, it's neat that the, you know, that the part's out and you can move around. There's wiggle room here to get this all installed. So 1 and then 2 and then 3, and we'll put them in loosely. Look, let's call this what it is. This is almost an afterthought. It's a lousy design. It's an afterthought design. A larger person, that's me. Most people are, aren't they? This will break almost instantly if you're not very cognizant of what's going on. All you need to do is get a big ass on top of it, again, like me, and you'll break it. It's really cheap. It should have never happened this way. It should be much more stout, more rigid, whatever you pick the word, than it is. So let me get some sense of direction here, and I'll show you what I mean here with the next clip. Okay, so, you know, this we're going to discard, and you can see where he went. We no longer have need of him because he's part of a manual seat, and we've still got our tilt lever. Wow, at the time, that's really something. And then we've got our 8-way seat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 6-way seat. All right, so now we can, you know, see, don't we, where these, what these covers do and how they cover up things, and when we're done and what we look at aesthetically, and everything's nice and tidy. So let's get some wiring going for our chassis ground and our hot wire over to our circuit breaker and our fuse block to purpose this now added amenity, whatever you would like to call it. All right. Okay, I prefaced before we do this, and I popped this in the car, I prefaced a whole different oddity of vehicles at the beginning, and, you know, here's an example. I mean, any car, any GM car this era, you pick and you can get, and we'll get harnesses like this that make purposing a seat easy. You just go right to the fuse block. You get what, number 10, looks like. Very nice, stout, heavy wiring, real angry, and more than adequate current on a safe circuit breaker to do this. And now that we're all greasy lightning here, oh man, this is going to be nice. So this will be, again, very welcome for a larger person or a taller person, and I'm both of those. So let's grab a wiring harness and get it over in the car and get it in. So we'll get a fish tape, won't we, and tie it up like I've done here and go on the other side of the carpet nab under there, and voila, right? So there's always a slit here right on this riser for which we'll purpose this ground wire and put a star washer under it. And then look at, we want to purpose this with a circuit breaker because when we're up against the wall and we deadhead this feature, shit, you could surge 40, 50 amp, you know, and no regular fuse is going to stand that, or you're going to pop that fuse. So a circuit breaker becomes our best friend, whether you solder him in or just use him off the fuse block, which is, you know, there's a place there waiting for it because it was an option. And in this case, it's going to be plural when we stage that side too. So it's all good, and that's how you do that. So let's get it done. And here would be that ground with the star washer under it. Okay, and then back to our seat before we stage it. Now that we're up in the air, so to speak, you'll see how these are all covered up. These plates, see, and anyway, you don't see much in the end and the sides and everything. So we are set to go. Balance this. Boy, that works quick. That's just a little nothing lawnmower battery. So that's what we're going to be when we're done. And, you know, we're going to, what, get 3.5, I don't know, could be 4 inches height. And that's, you know, for me, or to lower is more important to me personally. That'll be welcomed. And that's what you do. So let's get them in now that we've got the wiring and the floor pan all in and connected to our circuit breaker, and see what we get. One side down, one to go. Okay. So here we go. We fall in, right? I mean, look at that. Just, we're happening. And then you can see where we need to cover that up because we don't want to look at that, do we? I'll carefully put this here. But look at the difference already in one seat to the other. How high it is. And it's not even set that high. So, you know, for a smaller person, that's neat. And to sink and go back further than you would before, that's, you know, I mean, that's what makes a horse race, right? So let's get it plugged in and get it bolted down. All right, and, you know, now we can see where we fully utilize, this is just sitting here. See how we cover that up? Everybody's all there and waiting for us, and ×2, and then 2 covers in the back cover up the back. But, you know, look at how we're staged now. But look at what we can do with what we have to do it with now. We can go up, way up, and I'm not even bolted yet. Quite a difference. And then tilt back, tilt forward. Look at this. I mean, that's a big guy riding in the seat that far back. And that tilt feature here is not engaged at all. So if we come back down and you're a smaller person, you know, again, this might be something that you might want to consider, just like on the other cars. To go up here, and then, gee, look at how much further we are ahead. Quite a bit. And then we can, can't we, you know, go down in front and lower it and bring the back up. And then look at where we're sitting now versus the other side. So that's really remarkable. And see, we don't see anything. We're all covered nice. And that's pretty much it. We'll cover this all up back here with these covers and so on, and you get the idea. ×2. That's what's going on. That's a great book. Suggest you get it if you enjoy these sorts of cars. With a, well, we'll call it the driver's side, and we'll, you know, convert over to the passenger side next and change your seat tracks out. And again, very popular part, gosh, everywhere. The only difference being the cables. 60/40s, 50/50s, what do I want to say? Bucket seats, standard seats. It's really just the bracketry is all the same. The cables are just different, like a lawnmower cable. And you can cut, and if you have a jig, you can make those cables as long or as short as you'd like. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this exact track. You can make it work, you know. And please, nobody ask me to go get them a track. You know, go to the yards, get out there and sorry, automotive recycling facilities, and find them. They're very abundant. Okay, and then in the end, with finality, we look right at home now. Everything's get this out of here. Everything's ship shape, and it looks natural. Everything's the right fit. Everything's swishy smooth. All said and done. All the way to the covers that we learned about, and yeah, I even put a new cardboard down there. And I dump my power aerial and my interior lights with a little switch here so I can have my doors open. See them? There. See how we're in the dark. And that also dumps the aerial and helps maintain a good battery thing. You don't want lights burning and melding holders and stuff. There's no body control module and whatever back in this era. So that's the driver's side. Let's have a look and see what we can do with the passenger side. That'll be probably on another video someday. Again, I don't even know whether it merits another video. It's pretty self-explanatory. I don't know that it's needed, but that's it. Okay, there it is.